Besides, I have granted them a fair option but they refused to have anything other than their women and children. Therefore, he who has some of theirs and will prefer willingly to give them back, let them do. But those who favor keeping what he owns to himself, let them grant them back too, and he will be given as a recompense 6 times as much from the first booty that Allah may provide us. People then said, we will willingly offer them all for the sake of the Messenger of Allah. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, said, but in this way, we are not able to find out who is content and who is not. So go back and we will be waiting for your chiefs to convey to us your decisions. All of them gave back to the women and children. The only one who refused to comply with the messenger's desire was Uwayna bin Hizn. He refused to let an old woman of theirs go back at first. Later on, he let her go back. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, gave every captive a garment, as a gift. Lesser pilgrimage, al-Umrah, to Makkah and leaving for Medina. Having accomplished the distribution of the spoils at Al-Urana he left it while wearing al-Umrah clothes and proceeded to Makkah to perform al-Umrah. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, turned back from there to Medina after appointing Itab bin Usaid on Makkah as governor. His arrival to Medina was by the last 6 nights of Dhul Qaeda, in the year 8 on this occasion, Muhammad al-Ghazali said, what a great change it is between the victorious period of Muhammad at present which Allah has towered with a manifest conquest and that period of the past during which Muhammad first arrived at this town, 8 years ago. When he first came to Medina, he was pursued and wanted. He was seeking a secure shelter. He was a lonely stranger who sought companionship and comfort. The people of Medina welcomed him, gave him residence and aided him, and embraced the light of Islam, which had been sent down upon him. They, for his sake, did not care about the enmity of other people. Here he is entering Medina again, after the lapse of 8 years of that first visit. Medina, the town that had received him once, when he was a frightened immigrant, it receives him once again when Makkah has become in his hands and at his disposal. It is Makkah that has got rid of its pride and jahiliyyah, i.e. pre-Islamic period and traditions. It is now proud again and mighty in Islam. The Messenger of Allah forgave all the errors and wrongs of its people. Verily, he who fears Allah with obedience to him, by abstaining from sins and evil deeds, and by performing righteous good deeds, and is patient, then surely, Allah makes not the reward of the good doers to be lost. Al-Quran 1290, Fiqh Sirah 303, Zad al-Mad 160-201, Ibn Hisham 389-501, Sahih Bukhari, Chapter Fath Ghazwal, Union, Autos and Ataf 612-622. Fath al-Bari 8/3-58, Missions and platoons. After the conquest. Upon returning from this long successful travel, the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, stayed in Medina where he received delegates and dispatched agents and appointed preachers and callers to Islam everywhere. Those whose hearts were still full of prejudice against Islam and therefore were too proud to embrace Allah's religion were decisively muffled by their non-acquiescence in the status quo prevalent then in Arabia. Here is a mini image about the believed ones. We have already stated that the Messenger's arrival in Medina was by the last days of the 8th year of Al-Hijrah. No sooner the crescent of Muharram of the 9th year turned up than the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, dispatched the believed ones, to the tribes as shown in the list below. 1. Uwayna bin Hizto Bani Tamim. 2. Yazid bin Hussein to Aslam and Ghafir. 3. Abad bin Bishr al-Shalito Salam and Muzina. 4. Rafi bin Mukaithto Juwaina. 5. Amr bin Alisto Bani Fazara. 6. Ad. bin Sufyan to Bani Kalab. 7. Bashir bin Sufyan to Bani Ka B. 8. Ibn al-Lutabiyah al-Azdito Bani Dubian. 9. Al-Muhajir bin Abi Umayyato Sana, al-Aswad al-Ansi called at him when he was in it. 10. Ziyad bin Labito Hadramaut. 11. Adi bin Hadamto Tai and Bani Azad. 12. Malik bin Nuwayato Bani Hanzala. 13. Az-Zabrakhan bin Bajato Bani Sid, a portion of them. 14. Qais bin Asim to Bani Sid, a portion of them. 15. Al-Allah bin al-Hadramito al-Bahrain. 16. Ali bin Abi Talib to Najran, to collect Sadaqah and Jizya. Some of these agents were dispatched in Muharram, 7h, others were sent later until the tribes they were heading for had completely converted to Islam. Such a move clearly demonstrates the great success that the Islamic dawah, call, enjoyed after Al-Hudaybiyah Treaty. However, shortly after the conquest of Makkah, people began to embrace Islam in large hosts. The platoons in the same way that the believed ones were dispatched to the tribes, we understand that dispatching some more platoons to all regions of Arabia is a necessity for the prevalence and domination of security on all lands of Arabia. Here is a list of those platoons: 1. Uwaynah bin Hisn al-Fazari's platoon in al-Muharram, the 9th year of al-Hijrah to Bani Tamim. It consisted of 50 horsemen, none of them was an immigrant or a helper. This expedition was dispatched due to the fact that Bani Tamim had already urged other tribes not to pay tribute, al-Jizya, and eventually stopped them from paying it. Therefore, Uwaynah bin Hisn set out to fight them. All the way long he marched by night and lurked by day. He went on that way till he overtook them and attacked them in the desert. They fled back for their lives. 11 men, 21 women, and 30 boys were captured then. He drove them back to Medina and was housed in Ramla bint al-Harith's residence. 10 of their leaders, who came to the Prophet's door, called out unto him saying, "O Muhammad, come out and face us." When he went out they held him and started talking. He exchanged talk with them for a while, then left them and went to perform the noon prayer. After prayer, he sat on the mosque patio. They proclaimed a desire to show boasting and self-pride. For this purpose, they introduced their orator Utarid bin Hajib, who delivered his speech. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, asked Thabit bin Qais bin Shammas, the Muslim orator, to respond. He did that. In return, they brought forth their poet Az-Zabrakhan bin Badr, who recited some boastful poetry. Hassan bin Thabit, the poet of Islam, promptly replied back. When talks and poetry came to an end, Al-Aqra bin Habis said, "Their orator is more eloquent than ours, and their poet is more poetically learned than ours. Their voices and sayings excel ours, as well." Eventually, they announced their embracing Islam. Consequently, the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, acknowledged their Islamization, awarded them well and rendered them back their women and children. 2. A platoon headed by Qba bin Amir to a spot called Qadam in Tabala, a plot of land not far from Turba. That was in Safar, 9h, accompanied by 20 men and only 10 camels to mount alternatively on. Qba raided them and fought so fiercely that a great number of both parties were wounded and some others were killed. The Muslims drove back with them camels, women, and sheep to Medina. 3. The mission of Da'at bin Sufyan al-Kalabi to Bani Kalab in Rabi al-Awwal in the year 9h. This mission was sent to Bani Kalab to call them to embrace Islam. Refusing to embrace Islam, they started to fight against the Muslims, but were defeated and sustained 1 man killed. 4. The 300-men expedition of Alqama bin Mujazz al-Mudlaji to Jeddah shores in Rabi al-Akhir. This expedition was dispatched to fight against some men from Al-Habasha, Abyssinia, Ethiopia, who gathered together near the shores of Jeddah and exercised acts of piracy against the Makkans. Therefore he crossed the sea till he got to an island. But as soon as the pirates had learned of the Muslims' arrival, they fled. Fath al-Bari 859-5. The task of the platoon of Ali bin Abi Talib was to demolish Al-Qlas, which was an idol that belonged to the Tai tribe. That was in Rabi al-Awwal in the year 9h. Ali was dispatched by the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, with 150 men. 100 of them were on camels. The other 50 were on horseback. He held a black flag and a white banner. At dawn, they raided Ma'alat Hatim, demolished the idol, and filled their hands with spoils, camels, and sheep booties, whereas Adi fled to Ash-Sham. The sister of Adi bin Hatim was one of the captives. Inside Al-Qlas safe, Muslims found 3 swords and 3 pieces of armor. On the way, they distributed the spoils and put aside the best things to the Messenger of Allah, PBUH. They did not share the Hatims. Upon arrival in Medina, the sister of Adi bin Hatim begged the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, to have mercy on her and said, "O Messenger of Allah, my brother is absent and father is dead, and I am too old to render any service. Be beneficent to me so that Allah may be bountiful to you." He said, "Who is your brother?" She said, "It is Adi bin Hatim." "Is he not the one who fled from Allah and his messenger?" Said the Prophet, PBUH, then went away from her. The next day she reiterated the same thing as the day before and received the same answer. A day later she uttered similar words, this time he made benefaction to her. The man who was beside the Prophet, and whom she thought to be Ali, said to her, ask for an animal from him to ride on. And she was granted her request. She returned to Asham where she met her brother and said to him, the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, has done me such noble deed that your father would never have done it. Therefore, willy-nilly, frightened or secure, you should go and see him. Unsecure, neither protected by someone nor even recommended by a letter as a means of protection, Adi came and met the Prophet. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, took him home with him.